longtime member of the fair districts of Pennsylvania, and has been very active in training people who do some advocacy work. And he's very good at it, and we're looking forward to seeing that too. Going on to Kadida, and Kadida is the founder and Chief Executive Officer of the New Pennsylvania Project, which is a voting rights organization with a year-round primary focus on voter registration, civic education, and mobilization. NPP centers historically disenfranchised and often neglected Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, immigrant communities, and youth in their work. And through civic engagement, they ensure all eligible voters feel compelled to exercise their freedom to vote in the Commonwealth. That sounds good. Kadida Kenner is the founding Chief Executive Officer of the New Pennsylvania Project. She is a tireless advocate for social and economic justice issues and is motivated to empower and excite the electorate to enthusiastically vote in every election all the way down the ballot. Kadida has led efforts to stop the passage of a judicial gerrymandering constitutional amendment, raise the minimum wage, fairly fund public education, protect federal courts from problematic judicial nominees, and protect the state courts from extremist attempts to undermine their independence. Kadida also serves as co-chair of Why Courts Matter, Pennsylvania, an advocacy project seeking to protect the independence of our state and federal courts and to educate the electorate on their importance. Prior to working in issue advocacy, Kadida was a director, producer, and writer for HBCU sports television programming. And that's both live and scripted television in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Atlanta, Georgia. She is a Temple University graduate, and she resides in the Philadelphia suburbs and counts the civil rights organizing icon and Westchester, Pennsylvania native Bayard Rustin as one of her civil rights heroes. Welcome, Kadida. We're looking forward to your talk.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Hello, hello. Can you hear me okay? All right, it's been a heck of a day. I woke up early this morning and I drove to Harrisburg because today was the hearing of the Commonwealth court case that our organization, and I want to say your organization as well, is one of 10 pro-voter rights organizations that is currently suing the Department of State and Al Schmidt based on the vote by mail ballots and the incorrect dates and all of that drama. Yeah, familiar with all of that. And I will say that League of Women Voters, your name was lifted up many times as they cited your previous case as well in today's case. So congratulations on being one of these outstanding organizations that are out here making sure all Pennsylvanians who are eligible to vote have the opportunity to do that and not have their freedom to vote suppressed. So are you ready for tonight? It's going to be fun. The next 30 minutes, you have me and all of my strength and all of my passion for this work. So I'm ready to be with you tonight and share with you what our organization does and how we're doing it, and then hopefully inspire you all to continue to do the great work you are doing. I just heard you all were at a pride parade doing voter registration. Love to hear that. And so I have a very brief PowerPoint, and it's not a lot of words, it's a lot of pictures, because I want you to feel this work. And so I'm going to share some pictures of folks we've registered to vote in the last couple of days. And as you all know, this is a nonpartisan conversation we're having here this evening. So we're not here to support any particular candidate or any particular political party. And I will say that the last 10 or so days has been very different than the previous. And I hope that you all are feeling the energy that our staff is feeling, and that we are also hearing on the ground and experiencing on the ground. So let's get into it. Let me launch my PowerPoint. Okay, let me move all these boxes out the way. Okay. Can everybody see this okay?
Yes.
All right, here we go. So who are we? Who is the New Pennsylvania Project? Well, I was lucky enough to be able to be your keynote speaker last year. So I've met several of you there, or know of many of you because of that. And so I'm glad that you all invited me back here to present to the Capital Region. When I moved back to Pennsylvania from North Carolina, I moved to Harrisburg. So I did live in Harrisburg for 5 years and was really engaged with a lot of the grassroots organizations that popped up after the 2016 election. And we did a lot of great work there in the Capital Region. So the New Pennsylvania Project, we were founded in May of 2021. I was working a really good job at the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center and the Keystone Research Center there in Harrisburg, and working on, what was mentioned in my bio, which is trying to raise the minimum wage. That didn't work. Trying to fairly fund public schools. That got some traction. And trying to ensure that we have housing that's affordable for folks and all the things. And some of these things turned out okay, and some of them are still in process. And so came to the realization that in order to make these things happen, we're going to have an electorate that looks different than the current electorate in order for us to have legislators who look different than the ones who are currently in power and not voting our values. And so the New Pennsylvania Project was named in homage of the New Georgia Project and the incredible work of N.C. Ufot and Stacey Abrams. And if you are unaware of who Stacey Abrams is, I'm going to ask you other questions later. But as you may know, Stacey Abrams and the work of the New Georgia Project, they are at a 95% voter registration rate in Georgia. 95% of all eligible Georgians are registered to vote. And they've been at this work since 2014. So it took 10 years to get to this point. So we're a 3-year-old organization. So we're going to continue to be out here working on that. So the New Pennsylvania Project, we're a voting rights organization. We focus on registration. As was mentioned, we focus and center our attention on underserved communities so that everyone is out here voting. Now, there's that second organization, separate organization, which is the New PA Project Education Fund, a completely nonpartisan organization led by community leaders across the Commonwealth. And what makes us different as an organization, and what has been the vision of mine and others, is that we are hiring folks and paying them a living wage to do this work. And we are grateful for those who are able to volunteer to do this work tirelessly year after year. And we believe that we can create more leaders in the Commonwealth, and we can get more people, particularly in the communities that we center, registered to vote. If we pay people a good salary and some benefits and professionalize this activity so that we can get all these Pennsylvanians registered to vote. I'm most proud not only about the 40,000 Pennsylvanians we've registered to vote in the last 2+ years. I'm most proud that as an organization, I've never had to lay off a staff member because I didn't have funding to have them do this work. I'm most proud that we have the majority of our senior leadership team started in our organization as a very different position and have been elevated to positions that have directors in front of their names or chief in front of their names. And so I'm most proud about that in this moment. We started off 3 years ago. I was the sole staff member, and today we are currently a staff of 70 paid people doing this work year round. So I want to show you some pictures because I think that's the fun thing. And that's why you all are part of the League of Women Voters. And I think that's why many of us volunteer or want to volunteer to do work such as this. It's because we care about people. We care about making sure that everybody has the freedom to vote who's eligible to do so. So this is one of our staff members who's out there in the Capital Region. and Nikki, and she's doing a tremendous job. She started with us as a part-time staff member, and now she is full-time, making a salary. So many of our staff members never made a salary before. They were always wage workers. And so now to be making a salary with benefits, to ensure that they're having a better life for themselves and their families, it's an outstanding thing. So this is Nikki out here getting folks registered to vote. This year, we are registering folks to vote primarily on tablets. The previous years, we've been strictly paper. So we're experimenting with the tablets this year. I got some pluses and some deltas about what I think about tablet life, but I'll say that it has ensured that more people that we are getting to fill out applications actually get a voter registration card sent to them in the mail. And make sure that we don't have to read or decipher their handwriting. They can't move forward in the process unless they completed what needs to be completed. And so it's ensuring that more people are actually getting an application turned into an actual voter registration card. So that's the one of the good things about tablet voter registration. Okay, so I mentioned that 10, 11 days ago, our work looked differently than it does now. And I want you to meet Miss Maria, who is 94 years old. And Miss Maria was registered to vote on Monday of this week. And she is going to vote for the first time in her life. For the first time in her life, Miss Maria, 94 years old, is going to vote in this election. Miss Maria is originally from Puerto Rico, so eligible to vote, but just never registered to vote here in Pennsylvania. So she's going to cast her ballot for the first time. And this is Connie Santos, who started with us as a full-time staff member, and now she's a regional organizing director in the Lehigh Valley, and registered Miss Maria to vote in Pembroke Public Housing. Another gentleman here that Connie ran into on the ground on Tuesday of this week, let's say Thursday, on Tuesday of this week. This is a gentleman she had met in the housing projects many weeks ago, who he had been trying so hard to get registered to vote, but he just refused to do it. And he told her weeks ago, I'm not going to get registered to vote until there's a woman to vote for. And so Connie went back to his door on Tuesday and registered him to vote. That's a pen in his hand. He is getting registered to vote. This is one that I will never forget this one right here. I will never forget this. This is Gustavo. And Gustavo is with Janitha Short, our Director of Staff and Culture. And this was Janitha's first day doing voter registration, worked with us, brand new to the organization. This is 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And we were in Erie. We just expanded into Erie County to do this work. And we were decided to do this voter registration by knocking on doors. We had some information that there were lots of folks on a certain street that weren't registered to vote. So we went to that street and knocked on all of their doors. I think Gustavo was the fourth door we knocked on. And Gustavo's door, I had a picture of his door, but I should have put this up here. He had one of those doors that most people wouldn't have knocked on. He had two barking dogs on the patio, and he had a gate that was barely holding the dogs in. But for some reason, this was a door that I was not going to walk by without attempting to speak to him. And Gustavo came to his door, calmed his dogs down. And we asked Gustavo if he wanted to get registered to vote. And Gustavo said, I can't get registered to vote. I'm a felon. And we had a great conversation with Gustavo. And when we told Gustavo, because his feet are on the street, that he is eligible to vote in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, as long as his crime had nothing to do with voter fraud. And we told him that we can get you registered to vote here in Pennsylvania, Gustavo. This man said, I was waiting on this. I had been told that I could not register to vote, and I really wanted to vote in this election. And I had been told, that I couldn't vote, that I was never going to be able to vote. And so we were able to overcome the misinformation and disinformation that exists and that was provided to Gustavo. And we got Gustavo registered to vote. And let me tell you this. When we left him, after we got his voter registration form complete, and we left him and we started walking towards the next door, we heard Gustavo in his house shouting, hallelujah, hallelujah. He said it at least 4 times. And I still get chills every time I tell this. And Janitha, on her first day of doing voter registration, will never forget Gustavo. I know that man's address. I will be calling him and making sure that he gets to the polls on election day. All right. So I want to give you just some demographics so you have an idea of who it is that we are registering to vote, so that you know as an organization, kind of what we're doing out here, and kind of what's happening in the ecosystem. And so, as we mentioned, we're an organization that centers communities of color. We center the youth in our work. And you will see by the numbers here, the majority of people that we are registering to vote are under the age of 35 or 35 and under. And we love that more than 60% of those that were registering to vote are of that generation. And I'll say that you just saw Miss Maria in her 90s. And prior to Miss Maria, we have, as an organization, registered 2 100-year-old women to vote, one still shopping and driving, and at the grocery store, got her registered to vote. And when asked why she had never registered to vote before, she said no one had ever asked her. And so I say this because as an organization that's doing this voter registration, we also lift a lot of data off of the folks that we register to vote to find out about who they are so that we can get them to turn out. Because you all know, legal women voters, those most recently registered to vote are the least likely to actually show up to the polls, right? Because they need a lot of information. And so what we do as an organization is, after we turn their forms in to the Board of Elections or use the tablets, which goes directly to the Board of Elections, we make 3 calls to the folks that we registered to vote if we have their phone numbers. The first call we make to them is within 48 hours of getting them registered to vote, to ask them how their voter registration experience went, how the canvasser did, how they engaged them, what they thought about the experience. One of the questions that we asked them in that first phone call is, would you have ever registered to vote had we not seen you outside of 123 Main Street, or outside of the Wegmans, or outside of the Dollar Tree? And our statistics tell us that 52% of those that we encounter and those that we make phone calls for and answer their phone tell us that they would have never registered to vote had they not seen us on the ground. They would have never registered to vote. By race, as I mentioned earlier, we center communities of color, and that's exactly who it is we're out here registering to vote, the majority of which have self-identified as belonging to one or more race, or Black, Native American, Indigenous, Latino. And we've had a really big spike in our Latino registration because we have hired more folks who speak Spanish. That's the one thing, right? Because we know language access is a thing. And I'll tell you that I was just where was I? I was in Philadelphia on Tuesday doing voter registration training with our new team in Philadelphia. And I handed them all voter registration forms in English, Spanish, and traditional Chinese. And I'm telling you that the young woman that we just trained that day, after the training, she went out to the ground and she used her traditional Chinese voter registration form on that day. And she's a native Spanish speaker. So she doesn't understand traditional Chinese, but she was able to get that traditional Chinese voter registration form in that person's hand and get them registered to vote. And as an organization, we speak 9 languages. I've got staff members who speak Arabic, Spanish, Swahili, lots of things, Nepali. I mean, we're really trying to engage the communities that we center. Gender. So it's mostly men right now, which is surprising that it's mostly men. And this number has spiked to more men because I think that we've done a little less of voter registration on college campuses because they're out of school right now. Usually when we're back on college campuses, we register more women or females. And right now it's been more males. And I kind of like this, that it is more males right now, because I feel like they're particularly Black males, the communities that we really need to engage right now and get them involved in what's happening. So it usually is an even split just about, but right now it's a little more male. So I just want to let you all know, as the organization grows, right? I told you we were a staff of 1 and now, a little more than 70. We are having our new office grand opening for our headquarters in the city of Chester. It's Tuesday, the 13th of August. If you happen to know anybody in the area, or you're able to make it to Delaware County and celebrate with us, we're going to have our grand opening of our headquarters. We have 7 offices across the Commonwealth. We are everywhere now as a statewide organization. We just went and expanded into more of Western PA. So we're now in Beaver and Lawrence and Erie. We expanded in the NEPA area. We're at Lackawanna now. We'll be doing work in Center County, particularly around the Penn State students. We're in all of the capital region. So Lebanon, Cumberland, Dauphin, York, Lancaster, and Collier counties of Philadelphia, Philadelphia itself. So we're really excited about the growth of the organization and the fact that we have so many people who are willing to do this as a profession, professionalize this, and create and engage and spark new leadership into this work. So really excited about things that are happening as an organization. And again, what a difference one single day made. I mean, Sunday at a 1:45 p.m. announcement really changed the game for us as an organization. And I hope that you all are feeling that on the ground and as you're out there engaging communities as well. I'm curious if anyone has any questions for me. I've got lots of answers to a lot of things usually.
So Kadida, in your intro, you said that one of your goals is to have voters feel compelled, be excited, and empowered.
Yeah.
So we were at Pride, Pat Fox and myself, on Saturday, and everybody was fairly motivated. I mean, I think, Pat, you met with somebody who just didn't want to register to vote. You're muted.
It was shocking to me. I met with two people and they were registered to vote, but they just weren't sure at that point yet that they were actually going to vote. And I talked, and so I don't know, but I found that amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time. Oh, there was one picture I didn't put up there that I wanted to share. It was us on a playground, a basketball court, registering. We registered 3 young folks to vote under the age of 20 on a basketball court. It took us 15 minutes to convince them. They were all together. It took us 15 minutes of a conversation to convince them to get registered to vote. And that didn't guarantee they were going to actually go out there and cast a ballot. And so we know that we've been having conversations, particularly with young folks, to say, okay, you're not sure yet. You're not sure if you want to do this on November 5th. Well, let's at least get you registered to vote so that if you wake up on November 4th, you wake up on November 5th, or you hear something in the news in October that makes you change your mind, at least you have that voter registration card and you can walk that over to your polls and cast a ballot. And that's right now kind of the conversation we're having to have, particularly with young folks, and not just young folks. Is that let's at least get you registered so you can think about it. And that's why I think the phone calls that we make and follow up with those we register are super important, because those most recently registered to vote are the least likely to show up to the polls. And they don't show up to the polls because they don't know how to do it. Maybe they never saw mom, dad vote. Grandmom didn't take them in to show them. So they have no idea what to do. And so taking equipment to people, having sample ballots, playing games like voter bingo, whatever it is that we have to do to get people acclimated to touching the apparatus or the mechanism that they'll be using to cast a ballot is also very important. I think that is one of the things that they fear, is that they don't want to do it wrong. A lot of times people will say, I don't want to get registered to vote because I don't know who I'm voting for and I don't know what to do. I don't want to make the wrong decision. And so we have to really encourage them, in a nonpartisan way, that there are ways for you to find out what political party you align with, isidewith.com. We also inform them about, various things that they did not know right in the Commonwealth, particularly as we're engaging people. And what I did not put up there in this conversation we're having today is the rates of the party affiliation that we're registering. And in this moment, I'll tell you all, we are registering more unaffiliated voters, those who choose not to belong to either of the major political parties. We are registering more unaffiliated voters than ever before as an organization. It's almost 1 in 4 of those who are registering to vote choose to be unaffiliated. Even when we tell them that Pennsylvania is a closed primary state and provide that civic education and let them know they will be unable to vote for candidates in a primary election, they still choose to be unaffiliated. So, that is the work of political parties, is to get people to agree with their platform and bring them along. And in this moment, people are just not filling the major political parties. Again, prior to 10 days or so, it was really a struggle to get people to say they're going to come out and vote because, they weren't in love with the top of the ticket. And we were having to change our script to say vote bottom up, start at the bottom of the ballot and work your way up. And, that was kind of the language earlier. And now we're kind of back to, what we used to say. But still that bottom up is still probably key right now. I'm nervous about, folks just staying home. And we know that if they stay home, that impacts all of the down ballot races if people stay home. So yeah, there has been so much voter apathy this year. I've been doing voter registration for presidential election year since 2008. I worked on a campaign in 2008 that was historical, and it was easy. I mean, it was like having to say, hold on a minute, I got to get another clipboard. But now it's like talking to people for 15 minutes to finally get them to come around and say, okay, or just like that gentleman I showed you earlier who said, I'm not doing it, but then come back to him at his house a couple of weeks later and he say, okay. Or they see us outside of their library in our t-shirt and they see us there every Tuesday and they know we're legitimate and they know that we're not here with a political party. We're not asking them for anything or asking them for their vote. We're just asking them to go out and vote. And so when they recognize that in us, they know we're the truth, and then they'll say, all right, I've seen you out here now for 4 weeks. Today's the day. I'm going to register to vote with you today. So it takes some time. The conversations are longer. The engagement is different. The conversations have to be different right now to change some folks' minds. When we do onboarding for our new staff members, we just did an onboard training on Tuesday evening. We train our staff. There's this one graphic that we put together that gives a timeline of the history of voting. And on one side of the timeline, we talk about when rights were given. And on the other side of the timeline, we talk about when rights were taken away. And obviously, historically, if we're talking, it's a lot of the disenfranchisement of Black people in this country and on that timeline. And that argument used to work for some. Oh, your ancestors fought and died for your right to vote. That conversation is not winning over too many people anymore. So for me, as someone, I do this work. You see John Lewis behind me. I mean, you see Barrett Rustin behind me. I do this work to honor my ancestors, but not so many people really care about what ancestors went through in this moment, unfortunately. And so you have to figure out another way to get people engaged, particularly young people. What is going to move them to actually cast a ballot? Now, young people, they might want to buck the system, right, and go against what mom and dad does. So that sometimes is a way to get young folks registered to vote. Your mom and dad been making all your decisions. You're grown now. You're 18. You're grown now. All right, let's make your own decisions. Let's get you registered to vote. Start making your own decisions. So, it's that. It's also convincing, and we do this on college campuses, especially out at Penn State. We've done several blitzes on Penn State's campus. The first one we did, we went out there for Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. We registered 420 students in that weekend on Penn State's campus. And many of them that we registered, we actually changed address and had them register on their college campus instead of back home, if that is in New Jersey, or if that was in California, or if that was in Wayne County instead of Center County, to encourage them to vote where they live the majority of the year and where elected officials are impacting their daily lives on that campus, determining how much their tuition costs, determining what kind of rights and freedoms they have where they live the majority of the year. So we did a lot of convincing of changing folks to change their voter registration addresses. Or, California, love that you live there. Pennsylvania probably needs your vote a little bit more than California does. So let's get you registered to vote here in Pennsylvania. So we do a lot of that, a lot of making sure students have vote by mail ballot information in case they still want to stay on and vote where they live, other parts of the year. That's been really crucial for this work. So yeah, it's just the conversations have to be longer, more civic education has to be given, and we have to overcome the misinformation and disinformation that's out here and exists, because young folks we know today are getting everything from TikTok, everything from Instagram. And if they catch one TikTok reel that said the courts say, your vote doesn't count this way, but they never catch the next TikTok reel that says, oh, but this court changed that court's opinion, then they're stuck with what they heard one time and not what the actual truth is. So it's been doing a lot of overcoming misinformation. I can't tell you how many formerly incarcerated people who have been lied to. They have been lied to about their status and ability to vote, just lied to. Or some who have been out of the system for so long that when they were first released, 15, 20 years ago, Pennsylvania did have on the books where you had to wait a time period, but that's no more, right? The moment your feet hit the street here in Pennsylvania, you're eligible to vote. So, and then I'll tell you this too. I know I'm going on with this long answer, but the levels of literacy, let's have a real conversation right now. The levels of literacy in Pennsylvania and other places where there are just young people who cannot read, older folks who cannot read. And so they don't want to actually fill out the voter registration form because they can't read it. And they're not going to come out and say, I can't read. And so we're having to negotiate and look people and have, quiet conversations. Do you need help here with reading this form? Do you need some assistance in filling this out? And knowing we can do that, right? And fill out that bottom section as someone who assisted somebody, and then fill out that other question that says, what type of help do you need on election day? There's people who need help reading on election day. And we've got to recognize that, because unfortunately, we're coming across a lot of folks who are really challenged in this moment. So that's absolutely another thing that we're trying to overcome.
So I have a question. This is May Zia. Hi, Kadida.
Yeah. Hi.
I have a question about what you were just mentioning. Does it help for some of these folks, whether they're not facile with the language because they're immigrants, or because they really can't read, or they've just never voted before? It would seem to me that if they had a family member, a buddy, somebody who would be willing to step up with them and help them vote by mail, that they would have a much easier time. They would not have to go into a polling location. They would not have to, be subjected to what could be a very embarrassing situation where they have to admit they can't read, or they don't understand what. And I wonder, this is where the mail-in option, how many are choosing mail-in option when they register to vote?
Yeah. So I've been doing voter registration myself on the ground almost every day since that last Sunday announcement, because when I hear the pulse and hear what's happening out here. And the majority of the folks that we are registering to vote, although we have the voter registration form that we're using right now is the 3-page one, the one that's a voter registration and a vote by mail ballot request. The majority of folks are not choosing to vote by mail. And I think some of this is cultural, right? So I know for me personally, I vote in person because it's a day of celebration for me. Again, I'm someone who lives to honor my ancestors. I also like to be nosy on election day. I like to have conversation with poll workers, right? So, and I think that that's a thing, right? So culturally, there's just some people who are always going to go and want to vote. There are still some people who believe that vote by mail should not be a thing, should not be a thing in Pennsylvania or anywhere. And they believe that everybody should get their behinds to the poll and vote at a poll. So there's that. And so when we're talking about the vote by mail ballots or requesting those are particularly, we're engaging students and saying, where are you going to be on a Tuesday in November? That's the question. And they say, oh, yeah, I'm not going to be, in Lackawanna. I'm going to be over here in Erie. So yeah, let me get a vote by mail ballot request form, right? Or let's help you get this form filled out so that you can get a vote by mail ballot. But no, I think that is key too, is that you can take it if you have trouble reading or you're visually impaired or whatever it may be, you can sit around the dining room table for a couple of days with that ballot and talk about it and fill it in together as a group, right? But then it's also a private decision how people want to vote, and they may not want to have someone else in their business walking them through their ballot. So I think it's a plus. There's pluses and deltas to all of that too. But I'll say that the majority of folks that were registering to vote choose not to vote by mail.
Okay.
Unless they're typically students.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. I'm Kathy Gates. I see Kathy Seidel's name under me. Not sure why. I'm a public policy chair for the AAUW Harrisburg group. And I've always been interested in, I always thought it was a good opportunity to pursue folks living in senior living, because it's a captivated group there, and I'm not sure that they have the transportation to get where they want to go. And I wondered if your organization did any kind of voter registration in those types of facilities.
Absolutely. If we can be let in or sneak in, or and that's the thing, right? If we can be let in or sneak in, or we've got somebody that we, a cousin or a great aunt who's up in there, we've absolutely gone into not only public housing but senior living communities, because they're transient too, right? Maybe they're moving from a traditional home into senior living communities. So we're engaging them. When I was doing voter registration working for a campaign in 2016 in North Carolina, I stayed in the senior living communities. I told y'all I revere my ancestors and I love spending time with older folks. So I stayed in there, and they became my best volunteers too. We were burning up the phone lines together after I got them registered to vote. So yeah, we absolutely do engage those communities. And we've been working particularly in Philadelphia with the Philadelphia Commissioner Omar Sabir. He's been helping us get access to some of those buildings to get in. I mean, obviously you want to keep people safe in their homes. And sometimes if you're smiling a lot, they'll let me in a senior living community to engage, but not everybody has that option to do that.
So it's best to know someone that possibly lives there? Okay.
Absolutely. Best to know somebody that lives there and have them let you in so you can go floor by floor by floor.
Okay. And I think they would be great candidates for vote by mail.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, so I knocked on I was in Norristown. Was this Norristown or Pottstown? I'm forgetting that. Maybe it's Norristown. And I was in there and I got let in, and I took advantage of the opportunity to get in. And there was lots of folks who were bedridden. And so we were talking about how they can get their vote by mail ballot. And there's another thing that people don't know that it can happen on election day, is that it is the responsibility of the sheriff's office to get you a ballot, a provisional ballot delivered to your house on election day. So let's say you break your leg on election day and you are bedridden in your home and you didn't plan to be voting because you were going to go to the polls, so you didn't get a vote by mail ballot. You can call the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office will they're supposed to bring a ballot to your home and take it back to the polls for you.
Good to know. Darlene, you're muted.
And I see Mary Ellen hand up too. Yeah.
Well, I was concerned about whether you find vote 411 of use. I know it's a problem because it's reading stuff, but you're saying go down the ballot, so they need to know.
Yeah, so I'll say, as a younger organization, we're not, you all have better resources, as an organization than organizations like ours. So we absolutely would use Vote 411, provide that information. And I'll say this, we can, and I have these conversations when I attend Department of State meetings, and I look at Al Schmidt, and they can say that they put this on the internet all they want. The people that we're centering, the communities we center, are not going there to look for it. They're not going to read your information. If you can't put this onto a TikTok video for 17 seconds, it is not going to be seen or understood or heard. And so we have to come to where we are right now in this moment, and that is video. Yeah, we find ourselves even communicating with our staff that we don't even send emails out anymore. We turn everything into a video and send it to them on Signal. I mean, this is truly where we are right now, that we can't just say, go here, go to this website and look at the information. They are not going to do it. So if we're on the ground with someone and they're looking at the voter registration question and they're super confused because they don't know who a Democrat is and who a Republican is, our lawyers have approved for us to be able to give factual information. And we can say, well, the most previous Democratic president was Barack Obama. The most previous Republican president was, Donald Trump. Our lawyers have approved that for us to say, because people see that and they don't know who the Democrat is, who the Republican is. If people ask us questions, we'll stand right there on the street with them and Google. Let's Google this together and find out the accurate information that you need. The isidewith.com. If they need to figure it out and take that 20-minute survey if they'll ever do that, to find out where they align. So it is just really having, and this, you all know civics education has really been removed from education, off the curriculum. They are not getting this information. So we have to give it to them in a way. And this is why we talk about meeting people where they are. Meeting people where they are could be a physical meeting them where they are, or could be a meeting them where they are, where they can't read it. And so we got to show it to them on video. Mary Ellen.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I like what you were saying. I like that you were bringing into people who have literacy problems. I'm working with the homeless population right now,
Mhm.
and I can see it. I can see it in the young people all the way up. Um, would if they like if we did something like bring a buddy to the polls, how would they be? Would what would we have to do to get them to allow a buddy to go in the polls with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think about the application, and question number 10, voting assistance, says I require help to vote. I need this kind of assistance, and it's a blank line. Or I require language help. My preferred language is, and it's a blank line. And I think what we have to do is, if we're registering folks to vote or engaging folks to vote, make sure we're filling out this information so that polls are prepared for these folks to arrive and cast their ballot with the assistance and the help they're going to need. I mean, I don't know how far you can go to have, I don't think like you could live in Chester County and have your cousin from Delaware County walk you into the poll so much to assist. I don't know how that really goes, how that would go over, but souls to the polls was a thing, right? Back in the day, souls to the polls, it's a whole neighborhood went together as a block and they got it done together and they talked about what they're about to do as they were walking to the polls. So I think that we have to bring some of that old school stuff back, some of that souls to the polls. And as a community, let's talk about what we're going to do as we're walking over here. Hopefully, if your polling location is not so far away, because that's a problem as well.
I wonder if a
So yeah.
caseworker would be allowed to go in with them if we put that on the ballot.
Yeah, these are great questions. And I'll say this, the Department of State, Al Schmidt's office, they hold, and I want to say that your new CEO or executive director has attended one of these. I've been there and attended one of these, is to ask these questions of the Board of Elections office, is what can we do? What kind of assistance can be brought to a poll? I can't answer that one for you. I find it to be, I mean, I know that there's able to get assistance. They'll bring a ballot out to you to your car, right? If you can't get into the polling location. So there's that kind of opportunity. So maybe they're similar to that. I mean, if I'm someone who's a younger person or someone who may need a caseworker or someone to help read, I'm going to maybe be embarrassed about that. I mean, it is.
But if we got them as a
Yeah.
group, like
as a
the
group.
homeless people in the shelter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're souls to the polls, the unhoused, let's all walk to the polls, because, we know this is that they use soup kitchens, or they use Salvation Army, or whatever they can use. And so that's a great way to, GOTV activity is, let's all walk together to the polls on this day at this time and get the whole community going again. I think that's the old school thing that needs to be brought back right now, is the souls to the polls, and let's all march together to the polls.
Okay, I'll do
so
some research and I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be great, going
Yeah.
together. And I'm a former college professor, and I
Mhm.
heard what you're saying. Like, the young people aren't answering emails. I would send them emails, and same thing, I wouldn't get an answer. And they're like, Dr. Balchunas, we don't answer emails anymore. Text us and we'll get right back to you.
Mhm.
So you might want to try texting with the young people. I think you'll great response.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to say was thank you for all your work on gerrymandering. I know you do a lot on that. And I ran in that District 7 that was declared unconstitutional. I wish they did it during my race, but better than never.
Yes.
So thank you. That's
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah. Gerrymandering is an evil thing in all the ways. The prison gerrymandering, the judicial gerrymandering, the racial gerrymandering, it's all bad. Hi, May.
Yes, agree.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
so
I
much.
Sure.
So to that conversation, I work as a judge in the
Yeah.
precinct, okay?
Yeah.
And I will tell you that you can bring in somebody to assist you,
Yeah.
but that person then will have to sign specific paperwork that I will give them, right? So they are allowed to do that. A father with who couldn't speak English. We saw this a long time ago, a Nepalese father came in with the son who was assisting him, signed the paperwork. I had two gentlemen in 2020 come in, obviously not related, like maybe from a church thing. And one was pushing the other in a wheelchair, and I had them sign, and they didn't have any problem with that. So you can do that. But again, I think this sort of the souls to the polls would really work best when everybody is voting in the same precinct, right?
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
will also say that must have been the spring a year ago, I had at the very end of the night 4 young men who were maybe 18 or 19 all come into the polling location, and they were supporting each other. Okay.
Mhm.
They were they thought they were supposed to vote there, and we just took them one by one. One of them had signed up just fine and was eligible to vote right at that polling location, and could show everybody else how to vote. And then the others were in various states of, oh well, actually you don't vote at this location. You're uh, signed up to vote and registered just fine, but because it's so late and we're about to close, you need to vote today provisionally. So we helped that person. And then I think there was at least one person where something had gotten messed up, right? So that they weren't, in fact, because I could check for the entire county that they were not actually registered properly. And so we just gave him an education, but he came in with his buddies, right? So
Yeah.
that's I think something that young people, it's kind of like, well, I don't want to taste it first, you go taste it first.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
when they all help each other, it actually works. And if you've got a good polling location, which most of us who work at polls like to meet the public, we like to educate, and so this is our opportunity to help them feel comfortable, so
Yeah.
that the next time that they come in, it'll be fine, and they'll know what to do, and they won't be afraid in any way. But
Yeah.
yeah, we definitely, for groups specifically like Mary Ellen's talking about, where the homeless are, not in a particular location, but they're eligible to vote. They're, I'm sure, assigned a polling location based on where frequency they reside.
Yeah.
Then it really would help to have a designated buddy.
Yeah.
And would a shelter address be all right? I mean, they
I
use it
believe,
as their address. They
I,
get their
I
mail
believe so.
there.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they would all vote in the same precinct, so they could actually all go over together. I know one of our staff members, against our best judgment, we had to get with her later. She was driving folks on election day. She was driving folks from the shelter over to the polls in her car, and taking them all together, and back and forth, 3 at one time, 3 go vote, drop them off, come back, get 3 more go, because we don't do that right now as an organization, is drive folks to the polls. But she absolutely did that because she registered all those folks to vote. She has Norristown as her turf, so she registered all those folks who were unhoused, and then she took them to the polls on election day.
Wow.
I'd just
So-
like to say that Michael dropped into the chat the Department of State guidelines for accessible voting information. So if you want to take a look at that, you can click it and save it.
And I'll say this too, social pressure works. So when we're doing Penn State blitzes and trying to get all those Penn State students in Center County registered to vote, and they don't want to, change, they don't want to change their minds and vote on college campus, we'll say, well, you know what, like all your classmates are going to be there. Like, you go to the hub, you all will be at the hub together. Why don't you all vote together? Like, you're going to be the only one not at the hub on election day. So social pressure has worked with them too, in that way, because so many of these students say, oh, I'm going to go home on election day, and they never go home on election day. So to get them registered on the college campus, because that's where they are on a Tuesday in November, they're on their college campus.
Sure. Other questions?
No, but as I'm thinking, Michelle, like maybe it'd be a good project for us, the League of Women Voters. Like, if you need a buddy on election day, meet me at the polls. Meet a representative from the nonpartisan League of Women Voters. Help. It's a thought.
We'll discuss
What do
that.
you think, Kadida?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to try all things in this moment.
Yes,
Like,
all of the
give it a
above.
try. Yeah, try all the things. See what works.
Well, Kadida, we translated, and we had a grant this past year, to translate our voting brochure into 7 languages.
Oh, that's nice.
And So it was altered from the one we've been using for our regular events a little bit, not assuming that everybody who was going to pick it up was a citizen at this point. So we talked about in there, if you're not a citizen, things you can do. And one of those things was remind people it's election day, remind them to register to vote, and drive them to the polls. So, yeah.
Yeah. There's a great organization that I met 3-4 years ago called The Love Vote. The Love Vote. They're out of New York. I think their website's still up and going. I hope they're still in existence. And it was an organization that was founded to get folks who are registered to vote for their family members who are not citizens, right? Because there are so many family members who are, are legal or citizens, and so they can vote, but they choose not to. And so this organization encourages those folks to vote, out of love for their family members who don't have access to the ballot. And so that's been good. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm knocking on doors in North Carolina, 2016. And there were so many people who were like, I'm not voting this year. I'm not going to vote. And I would say to them, well, can you vote for me? Can you vote? Can you cast your ballot for me? Then, because, we have a governor in North Carolina, we have a governor here who decided that, he wanted to find out how people were casting their ballots, and he wanted to, with surgical precision, stop Black folks from voting. So will you go out there and please vote for me? If you're not going to vote for yourself, can you vote for me? Because I want to vote. And so I need you to do these things. So I was working for a political party at the time, so I was able to have different kind of conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Love Vote, it's just encouraging those. And I'll tell you, we have 2 staff members on our team who are not citizens, and they do a heck of a job of voter registration. And part of what they say on the ground is, I don't have the ability to vote. You do. Please get out of here and vote.
We attend all the local naturalization ceremonies here in the capital area. And it's an excellent opportunity because a voter registration form is not in their new citizen packet.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a great opportunity to talk to many of them who will stop at the table and start a conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
I
just
love
gonna
doing
tell
voter registration at the USCIS. It's my favorite thing to do because you don't have to convince them. They're ready to get registered to vote. They just finished, pledging, and they got the flag waving, and everybody's happy. They got their family with them. We used to register 300 people a week out of the USCIS ceremonies in Philadelphia, and they allowed us to have a table inside, but have since not allowed us to do that.
Well,
Red tape.
we do have a table now at the Dauphin County Courthouse, and we have a table at the federal courthouse, right outside the courtroom doors. They've
Okay.
been very gracious, and it's the judges that have said yes.
Okay, that's good. Are
Yeah.
you out there every day?
When I mean for naturalization ceremonies.
Okay. Yeah, because the Philadelphia naturalization ceremonies are 4 days a week. So we were there 4 days a week.
No, we have, I
Yeah.
think, 8 or 9 here. Counting Cumberland has 1, Dauphin County, and then the 4 federal. So.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Anyone have?
Sherry has a question.
Good, go ahead.
Not exactly a question, but some information. Michelle had mentioned that we had a grant to translate into 7 different languages. The other thing, and that was our guide to voting brochure. But the other thing that we did with that grant was we translated videos. You had said if you can get people to view something, that it's more effective into the languages. And the one is especially excellent. It's how to vote. So it talks about walking in and walking you completely through the whole process the day of voting. So they're out on our website, and they might be of value to all of us as we're moving forward.
Yeah. Sherry, you just reminded me when you said walk you through the voting process. Our book, Voting is Your Superpower. We received a grant last year to write a book on voting. And so I wrote a children's book on voting, and a friend of mine translated it into Spanish. So it's a bilingual book. It's both English and Spanish. And parents are saying that it also helps So maybe we ought to
There's-
get you a copy.
There's an organization called American Constitution Society, and they have they do this around President's Day. They have curriculum. I go into I go into a second grade classroom every year. It's one of my best friend from the second grade. She's a teacher now, so she invites me every year to go to her second grade class and do a mock election to teach them how to vote, so that they can take that information home to their parents to teach their parents how to vote. So if you go to American Constitution Society, I think it's called I Love the Constitution. I love the Constitution. And it's a curriculum, and they have it for, kindergarten through fourth grade. They have another one for seventh through like ninth grade or whatever. But it's a great time to do that too with the kids. And they get really excited about that every time I go. And I have to call her because I'm supposed to go back there sometime next month.
Yeah, we'll have to get
Yeah.
you the book.
Yeah.
I've done that, and for my daughters when she was it was to pre-K to fourth grade at Friends Central,
Yeah.
and we brought a donkey to show them the Democratic Party, Eeyore, and Kermit the Frog for the third party, the Green Party, and we were in the Disney store. My daughter found Dumbo and said, "Mommy, look, the Republicans." And I said, no, Lauren, we can't use Dumbo. So we used the Thomas Nash's cartoon when he created the idea of the Democrats being a donkey and the Republicans being an elephant. So he used the circus elephants in his drawing. So we bought a circus elephant in.
Yeah. Yeah.
We train them up young.
Yes, it made it interesting for them.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to mention this Constitution Society.
Mhm.
That might be something we could just make a suggestion on our website to say that this is a
Mhm.
place to get some additional information about voting. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, and they have a curriculum. So if you actually wanted to just print it out and take it to a classroom, it's curriculum that's written out for various levels. Yeah, American Constitution Society, ACS.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yep.
Will, Kadida, and
Is that
everyone.
it? Is that
Thank
it?
you so
Yeah.
much. We
That was
really
so great.
appreciate
Yeah.
you coming and answering questions and sharing your expertise. We really thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. We got 3 months to go, right? A little more than 3 months to go.
Yep.
And I hope that this election is peaceful, and I hope everybody remains safe and calm. I hope that we have a determination about the election at the end of the day, and that we safely have a transition of power, and then we can continue to go about our business here. And I'm just, encourage everybody to stay safe and protect your peace, and stay safe out here.
You
Challenging
too.
times.
So much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank